Okay, thank you so much for having me today. Um, I know the whole flat earth thing is quite a topic these days, but that's actually not what I'm here to talk about. What I am here to talk about is building a flat organizational structure. And I'm the CEO and the co-founder of the At Company. And when Kevin and Colin and I started the At Company, we set out to build a really different type of company. And I just want to give you a little background on the company because I think that's important as to why we decided to do a flat organizational structure. So, what we're doing is we're trying to flip the internet. So, if you think about the way the internet is today, each company has its own database of your data, right? You've got to go log into each company and maintain your data on their database, and they have to protect your data. If somebody gets in, they get not just your data, but everybody else's data as well. And so this is the architecture of the internet today. And this is crazy. I mean, nobody would architect a system this way. So we want to flip this. And we want people to own their own data and for apps to log in to you. And you give permission as to whether somebody has your data and for how long they have it. And you can take it away as well. So all the apps in this environment are all peer-to-peer, and it opens up some really fun, interesting applications. So this is a very different way of doing things. And as a company, what we want to do is put people at the center of things. So we want on the internet for all people to be treated with respect, have their freedoms, and own their own data. So as such, we felt like we need to figure out how to do that as a company for employees as well, and not just employees, but anybody who works with us. And so what we wanted to do was empower people to own their own destiny and to do what really excites them and to grow in ways that they never felt possible before. So that's why we decided a flat organizational structure was the one for us. So I want to give you a little background about me and my journey. I've been in the computer industry for over 30 years. When I started in the industry, there were not a lot of women leader role models. And the women who had made it to the top were just tough as nails. And they were very alpha. They could go toe to toe with any guy in the room. And that's not me. That's not my style. That's not how I do things. And so I thought I will never be in a leadership role in the computer industry. But I had a real natural aptitude for the technology, and I love marketing. And so I ended up working my way up, running companies. And it's funny because people say, you're either a leader or a follower, but I don't think that's true. I think there's a third category. There's people like me who are not good at following, but I don't really understand. I didn't understand leadership because I wasn't a good follower. So I think to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower as well. So I've spent my entire career studying leadership and trying to understand it better. So I blog about this because it helps me understand it better. But I do have one really good role model in my life, and that is one of my dogs. So I had 3 rescue pit bulls, and people may think pit bulls are scary, but they actually all have different personalities. For example, the one in the middle is a complete beta dog. He will follow anybody, just tell him what to do. He's fine. The one at the top, Toa, unfortunately just passed away, but he is insecure, aggressive, and so he's really afraid of other dogs, and so becomes very aggressive just to try to put up a front so he'll be okay. And it's funny, a lot of people actually do that as well. But Gemini is calm, confident. She came from a happy home. She other dogs just look to her immediately because she makes them feel safe. And so she is the type of leader that I would like to be. So someday I'll grow up to be like her. So when we first started down this path, we needed to come up with what our core values were and our company culture. And the way we do this is we start a Google Doc and everybody chimes in on what they think it is. And then we had a meeting to go through the doc and kind of wordsmith things. And so now we have a doc that says what our core values and what our company culture is. And it was really fun this last summer when our interns started, because each person spoke about one of our core values that resonates with them. And I wish I'd recorded it. Unfortunately, I didn't. But it's just really great to see everybody owning the core values of the company. So these are living documents. These will change as we grow, but it's a great place to start. And it's a great way for people to have an understanding of what we're driving for, and that's how they make decisions. And I think the decision process is super interesting in our company. And the reason for that is my last company, we would make a decision, and it may have been based on technology or financially driven. We didn't have the resources or some other reason. And then we would, a couple of years later, revisit that decision and go, well, why did we make that decision? And we'd spend a lot of time just revisiting a decision that we'd made because we couldn't remember why we made it. So at the ad company, we log all of our decisions. And so I think this process, even if you don't want to do a flat organization, I think this is a really interesting process anyway, because what it does is people do a decision log, and this is kind of what it looks like. It's a one-page, really simple format. And then they post it in a group chat and say, I want to make the decision by this date, so give me feedback before then. And people comment, they add reasons for the decision. It's really important that we solicit dissension, and I think this is I think this is super important in any company, and I see this in our society today. People are not allowing differing opinions in, and you learn so much from somebody differing with your opinion. I think it's great, and so we really want to solicit dissension on these decision logs. And then the decision's made, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. As long as we correct quickly, we can always move on. So, but they're made out in the open, so everybody knows why the decision was made, and I think that's really useful. So there were several opportunities, challenges when we first started this, and people would ask, who do I report to? Who gives me approval? How should I spend my time? Who does the hiring? Who does the firing? Who does the budgeting? And so now we use the decision logs, and everybody can do the hiring. But the one thing I haven't done yet is figured out how to do the budgeting. That's still a work in progress. And another challenge that I had was vocabulary around this. Trying to develop a vocabulary that people can understand and relate to, and actually makes them feel like they're driving the show. So instead of saying something like, hey, figure out how you can best contribute, I should have said something like, look, we hired you because we believe in your judgment, and so you tell me how you can best contribute. And the other thing is the people, because not everybody's going to be able to work in an organization like this. So you really need people who are self-starters, independent thinkers, and natural collaborators. And the other thing that is really important is diversity, because I think the diversity of thoughts and opinions give you just so much more perspective on what you're trying to do. And just to give you a simple example of that, we had a messaging company working with us to kind of come up with what our overall messaging was. And we're the founders are Silicon Valley people. We've been in the Valley for years, and so we were working with them on this messaging, and Chris, who's from the UK, says, well, that just sounds like Silicon Valley BS. And we went, oh, well, I never thought of it that way, but you're right. So just having differing opinions from around the world is huge. And we're a virtual company, so we can do that. So the other important thing is the board. You can't do something like this without a supportive board. And luckily, we do have a fabulous board. They are independent thinkers. They question the status quo, and they really want to contribute to the future of work. And so they're just amazing. But what I struggled with the board is I've always done board meetings, with bringing in department heads and then have them present what they're doing in their department and what their accomplishments and what they're going to do next month. And so doing this in a flat organization was, how do you do that? Do you bring everybody in from the company? So what we decided was everybody who wants to present to the board can, and they can present their project, and here's the format that they use to present their project. And so on Monday, before the board meeting, we bring everybody in and we go over all the presentations. We'll weed out a lot of it because we can't fit everything in, but pick the ones to present, and then that's what happens at the board meeting. And so the very first time we did this, I was amazed because I felt like we covered things in so much more depth than we had before, and yet we finished early. So it was super interesting for me. The other really interesting thing about this was the team members a lot of people who would never be presenting to a board normally got very excited about presenting to the board and really felt even more ownership of what they were doing by presenting it to the board. So I think it was really good for some people. It depends on what motivates you, but for some people it was fabulous. So that was one of the wonderful side effects that came out of all of this. So what have we learned? So one of the things that I know is it does take an adjustment period when we hire somebody to adjust to this type of structure or lack thereof of structure. And old habits die hard. So it's really easy to just go, well, this is the way I've always done things, instead of saying, oh, well, that's not the way we should be doing things here. So it takes time, and you've got to give people that, especially if they've been in a hierarchical organization for a long time. You've got to give them time to adjust. The other thing is mistakes happen. They always happen. They're learning opportunities, and you don't want to be in the mistake prevention business. So I worked for a startup early on in my career in the Silicon Valley, and we had shipped just garbage. I mean, the product didn't work. And so they brought in this guy from IBM, and he brought in his massive IBM process and stuck that on the company. And it was basically a mistake prevention process. And the company spent 2 years and never released a product. And that's just, that just doesn't work in a startup. So embrace the mistakes, have them in the open, discuss them, and move on. And this last one is really interesting. This is definitely unique to us. In fact, it's so unique to us. I had a friend of mine who went to the website and looked at it and went, fun. You talk about fun too much. That's not very professional. You really shouldn't do that. And I thought, oh God, that's just sounds horrible. I guess we're not professional, but we find that when you work on things that you're really passionate about and you're really fired up about, your work is just so much better. And so we always say, if it's not fun, don't do it. You can put it off for a time when you feel inspired to work on it. And so people just do some amazing work at the company because of this. So that's some of the things that we've learned. I'm actually blogging about this. I've written 3 articles thus far. I've got to do another one here soon. And so if you want to read those full articles, they are on my Wavy page. And I appreciate your time today.